Hello and welcome to the second session of the four-part IRS Rail webinar series on the power of digital to inspire rail passenger confidence, produced by the International Railway Summit in association with SBB, the Swiss Federal Railways. Today we are going to explore digital nudge for social distancing, courtesy of our sponsors Advantech and Smart Motors. I'm Jules Omura, the Managing Director of IRIS Events, and it's my pleasure to welcome you all to this session. So at the last count, we had over 210 people from 46 countries registered for today. Welcome to those of you attending our webinar for the first time, and welcome back if you've joined us before. Earlier this year, we interviewed dozens of leading rail operators from across the world, and without exception, they were all suffering from the impact of the lockdown. They said they were facing a completely unexpected situation and wanted to know what they should be doing, what other operators were doing. We quickly realized that this is our job as the organizer of the International Railway Summit to provide a platform to exchange best practices between rail operators, authorities, and the supply industry. I'm grateful that SBB, one of the most innovative rail operators in the world, has kindly agreed to support and lead the debate. The series explores the power of digital to inspire rail passenger confidence, once a month between September and December. In September, we learned about how operators should provide a healthy environment for passengers. We heard from the International Union of Railways, UIC, SBB, East Japan Railway, JR East, Advantech, and Alstom. If you missed the debate, the video is available on our website, so do check it out. Today, we'll be learning about digital nudge for social distancing. Nudge being a psychological tool used by authorities and companies to gently encourage people to behave in certain ways. Once again, I'm excited to have the support of leading opinion makers and innovators as speakers with us today. In particular, we are fortunate to have the support of Advantech and Smart Motors, which allows us to provide this important debate for anyone to watch for free. Advantech has the world's largest share of industrial PC market, 35% of the market. As a leader in industrial IoT hardware solutions, Advantech partners with carefully selected innovative software specialists to provide all-in-one hardware software package products to customers. One such co-creation partner selected by Advantech is Prague-based onboard Wi-Fi and infotainment specialist Passengera, whose CEO Jan Kolar will share with us today their passenger information solutions to make rail passengers feel safe again. Barcelona-based Smart Motors specializes in real-time monitoring and data analysis for both rail operation and rail infrastructure. Thanks to their technology, Barcelona Metro has been providing carriage occupancy information on the platform displays and on a mobile app since before COVID. And I look forward to finding out more about that from their CEO, Marc Gispert, later on. We're equally grateful to SBB's Julian Renninger, RATP's Felix von Peckmann, and PwC's Paolo Guglielminetti for their contributions to this webinar. If you want to know how you can support future webinars and participate in the debate, do get in touch with us. We'll be announcing the details of part 3 at the end of this webinar. We're tweeting live during this webinar. Follow us at @RailSummit, and please use our hashtag. You can see the information on your screen, IRS Rail Webinars. If you enjoy the session, do continue the debate on Twitter and LinkedIn. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce you to our guide for today, Paolo Guglielminetti. Paolo is partner and global rail leader at PricewaterhouseCoopers. He has over 20 years of experience in transport planning, economics, and operation. His current projects involve rail digitalization in the 2 key areas of enhancing rail network operation and improving customer experience, which makes him a perfect moderator for today's debate on digital nudge for social distancing. Paolo, over to you.
Thank you very much, Jules, for introducing this extremely interesting session. As you have already mentioned, the new challenges related to the current emergency is for transport operator. One, in particular, the need to keep social distancing and to ensure to passenger and authorities the maximum level of occupancy are respected. we will explore today, digital solution can be a good element to provide guidance to the passenger. In the past, digitalization was already emerging as a key element in guiding passenger choices before the trip. Now, in the next normal we are living today, and then the new normal we will experiencing after this emergency will be over, hopefully soon, we have improved digitalization with more info available to the passenger when they are planning their trip about the forecasted occupancy level. But also, we are seeing digitalization emerging as a key tool to guide the passenger during the use of the transport system, to use in the wisest way, I would say. And digitalization, as we will see, is developing and promising, even if it's not solving all the problem. And we will understand from the speaker what are the success factors, both on terms of technology solution and also effectiveness in guiding the passenger. As you have already mentioned, this will be a very interactive session. So there will be the possibility to introduce your question using the Q&A section of the control panel, or you can also raise your hand, and then if you are selected, we will inform you that you will be asked to orally share your question after introducing yourself. You can also download the handouts of the presentation in the specific section of the control panel. So you will be able also to get the elements that will be presented by the speakers as a handout. I would like also to thank you again, SBB, for supporting this series of very interesting webinars together with Advantech and Smart Motors, because they are allowing us to have such an interesting discussion. So I think in order to save time and go immediately in the core of our discussion, I will introduce now the first speakers, Julian Renninger, from Swiss Federal Railways. Julian is Innovation and Development Manager and also the project leader of the Swiss Smart Mobility, which is a dedicated unit for digital innovation within SBB. He will share their experience during the extremely peculiar situation we are living in using digital nudging to support the choices of the passenger and guide them during the trip. Thank you, Julian. You have the floor.
Thank you, Paolo, and hello, everyone. I'm glad to be here and share some insights we have in SBB about digital nudges. And I just would like to share some thoughts, give you some examples, and hope I can give some inspiration or raise some new questions for yourself. What I would like to start with is that social distancing is a tricky topic for us train operators, because our trains are only efficiently running, and we don't only make financial loss if our trains are full. And if the trains are full, social distancing is a problem. So for us, it's maybe not about social distancing inside the trains. It's more shifting people to empty trains. For example, you see here our typical peak over the days that the trains are very, very full in the morning and very, very full in the evening. Interestingly, more full in the evening than in the morning. And for us, it's a big challenge to how can we distribute the people maybe to off-peak hours and maybe a little bit more inside the train itself. So social distancing is for us maybe more a question about shifting people rather than maintaining the social distance inside the trains, because only if the trains are full, we run without happy financial losses. And shifting people and changing the habit is really difficult, and digital nudges are very soft tools. And I think it's questionable if digital nudges really can help shifting people. However, we found some measurements which work, and this I would like to share with you. And in addition, in the times of Corona and COVID-19, maybe this is the moment of truth that we can change the habit of people and use this to really change how mobility is working and how people are traveling, and solving not only the social distancing problem, but also solving some off-peak, on-peak challenges we have these days. So this being the opening slide, I would like now to jump to a short poll So every one of you gets a bit activated and having some 2 questions, which should give you a bit an indication of what we are trying to do. Jules, the stage is yours.
Yes, if my colleague could switch on the poll. Yes, thank you. So this is for everyone to answer. So if you can imagine a situation, the lockdown has eased and you plan to visit a friend. A standard ticket at a convenient time will cost 25 euros and the journey will take an hour. What would persuade you the most to take a train at a less convenient time? Is it a ticket price of 15 euros, less expensive ticket, a lower predicted occupancy, a later but faster train? So if you can respond to this question, you've got maybe 10 more seconds to do. Julian, if you want to explain anything further, feel free to do that. No? Okay, so if you can respond to the question. We've got 40 people who have responded. If you can respond in the next 5 seconds. But just wait to people still responding. Yeah, 3 more seconds, 2, 1. Okay, if you can close the poll, please. And we have the result. If you can open the chat screen on your right-hand side and click on polls and look at a closed section, then you will see the result there. So Julian, over to you if you want to comment on that quickly.
Do rather the second one directly, and I commented on both of them later.
Okay, no problem. So let's show the second poll, please. So you have now bought a ticket, so same journey, and standing on the platform. Your app shows you that at the end of the train, the carriages should be emptier. How many carriages are you willing to walk? No, none at all. You just stay in the same place where you are. 1 or 2 carriages, 3 to 5 carriages, or more than 5 carriages. Again, if you can submit your answer in the next 10 seconds or so. People responding. So if I give you maybe 5 more seconds to get the responses. So if you haven't voted yet, please do so now. 3 seconds to go, 2, 1. Yes, and then if you can close that poll. So everyone can see the results of the poll in the polls section of your white part of your screen on the right, and the closed, you will see the result of the 2 polls. So Julian, over to you.
Thank you. So 2 nudges have worked for us. These are quite simple and obvious nudges. It was the Super Saver tickets and the occupancy information. The Super Saver tickets is a tool where we, sometimes manually, but also with some algorithms, make trains cheaper, which are maybe off-peak, maybe have less crowded, and thus trying to steer people. And this actually works quite well, and we can see an effect in the data that people are taking slower trains or even trains we have to change once by saving money. Saving money means a ticket instead of $25 maybe costs maybe 15, as it was in the question. The second big tool which worked for us, and only with COVID now, before it didn't work so much, was the occupancy data. We're having an algorithm predicting the occupancy of trains for the next days, and you can see how the occupancy is expected to be. And you have this per carriage, but also for the whole train. And with these 2 informations, we can see effects. The Super Saver ticket effect we saw already before COVID. The occupancy we see now, that people are much more looking at this information, really using it. So we had it already before, but people were like using more as an interesting information. But now really everyone is really using the app, looking at it, and trying to get it. This reflects a little bit with the poll, and you see that your poll is more or less the same thing I asked now. Your answers were that you would walk, 56% said you would walk even more than 5 carriages to get to an empty train, to an empty carriage. I have to be honest, this does not reflect in our data we have. We see that most of the time, the last carriage is quite empty and the first ones are super crowded. So even if we give the people the information, we nudge them, we show them that the carriage is empty, they don't change their habit so much. So we're still trying to figure out how we can even stronger give them information that they should walk a bit more further. But since COVID, since the problem of full carriages is more important, people are walking a bit more. Maybe this is also reflecting in your answer, that you would, at least in this poll, be willing to walk further. Then the second question, or the first question actually was, what would convince you to take a different train, the lower predicted occupancy or the ticket price of 15 euros or later but faster train? What we see in the data, the really only convincing thing is the lower ticket price and not the occupancy. But maybe this shifts with COVID now, and the occupancy is more important than the ticket price, as indicated in your answers. We don't have data on this yet, but up to now, the price was the only one which really worked. As an important side note, Switzerland has an open railway system, so reservations are not a tool for us. Everyone can just board a train without any reservations. We cannot play with this at all. So this is different to many other countries like Italy or Switzerland or Germany, where you have this tool. So I think this is a third tool which can work very, very well. Maybe this is not a nudge, maybe this is more a force, but nevertheless, it's a tool that works. However, I think these two things here are traditional measures. I think they're not surprising. I think maybe you expected something more innovative, some cool fancy tools. I think they are around, and I will show you soon now too. However, these measures are taking more time. These are innovation topics and not ready for the mass market. These two things here are ready for the mass market. We have been live since 2 or 3 years, and they really work. So if I jump one step further, and we have here our innovation solutions, and these are the two. The first one is that we try to nudge people to empty trains. We try to send them push messages to highlight less crowded trains. So we try to work with their mobility behavior and know, this person is like traveling every day to the city, but we know that 10 minutes later there's a train which is less empty, which is much more empty, and maybe even cheaper. And then we'd like to push him and saying, hey, did you ever take into consideration to take the train a little bit later? This would be much more convenient for you. So we're trying to highlight less crowded trains or relief trains via push messages and via detecting a mobility behavior. This works well. We're having positive feedback on this. However, we haven't scaled it yet on the mass market. And I think using these tools for innovative group, which is open for it, is much easier than really scaling them on a big market. And these are the next steps we're doing on. It looks promising. I would like to motivate all of you to look into this topic. However, I cannot tell you yet if it's really a working solution. And the second one is for sure the intermodal combination. I mean, this is the hot child and the hot kid on the block in our new mobility world, that we combine shared mobility plus PT. And there we played around with, we call it leg replacement or combined trips, where we try to replace crowded PT legs with sharing solutions. So you see this on the screen on the right. It's not so big, but you can see that we have a trip, the yellow one and the blue one. The one is a tram, the other one is a train. And we suggest that you replace the tram through a sharing option because it's quicker and less crowded. You're more COVID safe. And the feedback we got is very promising. I think this is the way to go. This is a way to play around with intermodality and combine. However, it's still a very, how should I say, a very innovative topic. Not many people are open to use sharing solutions. It's still hard for us to really communicate it in a nice way that the user is accepting it, but it looks very promising. But both options are innovative options and will take maybe 1 or 2 years until we really can scale them, or maybe 3 years. And hopefully by then, the COVID time is over and social distancing doesn't play such a role anymore. However, as I said at the beginning, maybe it's not so much about social distancing, and social distancing is just the momentum we have. It's more about shifting people from from full trains to empty trains and having this shift. And in addition, having the shift, by the way, from private mobility solutions like cars to the public solutions like public transport to have the environmental aspect too. With these thoughts, I would like to close with just one sum up slide. A nudge for social distancing in trains is in effect shifting people from full trains to empty trains. Having social distance inside trains is not just a topic, or people will maintain it themselves. What worked for us is super saving tickets and information about occupancy. The occupancy data we harvest on our own, but you will later on hear from the 3 other speakers also information about occupancy data. From my point of view, it's a big challenge that digital nudges are too weak to change travel habits. And shifting people from full trains to empty trains is a strong traveler habit. I think digital tools are very important, digital nudges, and I think they're an element we need to address. However, if we address only with this, it doesn't change anything. I think we also need to tackle the external factors. When does school start? When does the office hour start? When do we eat lunch? And then as a side note, we found out that it's much easier for us to change the habit for leisure trips than for daily commute trips. I think this is not surprising at all, but we can work with it. I mean, leisure trips is still quite an amount of travel trips done. So because of COVID-19, we're in a moment of truth. People are changing their habits. But we notice now they're changing their habits, but instead of going from Tuesday to Thursday, but now it's Tuesday to Thursday. Before, everyone went to office from Monday to Friday, and our trains were crowded. Maybe not so much Friday, but now it's just Tuesday to Thursday, and Monday and Friday the trains are empty. But in between, they're still full, and we have to build all our infrastructure for these 3 days. So I think COVID-19 is a chance for us. We can see it as a risk. We can see all the drama, and I think this is a risk and a problem we have. But on the other hand, it's a big chance that we can change things in our interest. And I would really motivate everyone to take this chance, try out new tools, build on things which already work, the ones I showed you, and then try to really change something. Thank you. Back to you, Paolo, I think. Oh no, Felix. Thank you.
Oh. Jules, you're muted. Here we go. This looks like my slides. Perfect. Welcome.
Sorry about that.
Everybody.
Yes, sorry. I'm just standing in for Paolo. Thank you to Julian, and we're just moving on to RATP's Felix von Peckmann. So over to you, Felix.
Thank you. Welcome. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak here. So I'm going to talk to you about what we did in Paris for as post-COVID measures and to make sure our customers and passengers were informed, were well informed of the situation. Just a quick overview, just for those who don't know the RATP group, like our main business is in Paris, but we have operations all over the world on many transport modes, and we have a bit more than 60,000 people in the company. The second point, so in Paris, which is our main base, we are operating several metro suburban lines, we call RER, tram and bus routes, and we have about 12 million trips per day in normal times, and that makes in normal times again around a bit more than 3 billion trips every year. So that's just the context. So we have a very busy network with especially the line A, which is the busiest urban rail line in Europe. So crowdedness is a topic every day in the Paris network. It used to be, and it still is sometimes. So what we did during the confinement we had in Paris between March and May roughly, and during and afterwards, we did obviously all the measures that many companies like rail companies deployed all over the world. So from cleaning to we had of course we offered some special shuttles for healthcare workers. So there were like a couple of measures, and of course we did a lot of physical nudging, like many other people did. So we did physical nudging in the stations and in the trains and buses, where we had stickers on every second seat, stickers on the floor, in the trains and in the stations. So we deployed like over 1 million stickers everywhere, and we increased our cleaning budget quite significantly. So that's the big picture. And so to accompany this, we also did some digital nudging. And so we have an app. Our app has around 20 million visits every month, and 2.5 million active users, more or less. And of course, a bit less during COVID times, like during the lockdown. And so we wanted to provide them with first, of course, all the key questions they had to know. People had to, in the first weeks after the end of confinement, people had to have a certificate that allowed them to travel. So they had to fill in a form. So on the app, we gave access to that form. We gave access to like maps with the stations that were open, because some at the beginning of the deconfinement, some stations were closed because the social distancing was difficult to guarantee, etc., etc. So and because of also availability of personnel. So we were created from scratch that COVID center in the app, and we also provided information about crowdsourcing. So crowdsourcing, that's we wanted to provide people with information on how crowded are the trains and buses, and of course, most big operators, we had looked at many options, like counting systems, weighing systems, camera, like any type of camera counting. But in when the deconfinement was to arrive, there was no way we could deploy industrially this solution to all our network in a rather reasonable amount of time. So we decided to create from scratch a crowdsourcing solution with our in-house developers. So the app we develop is in-house, and all the systems around it, most of the systems around them, are developed in-house. And so we created from scratch a system where our users, the people who traveled, could provide the information of how crowded their train or bus is. So we offered them a scale of 5 elements, 5-level scale, and they could say, okay, when they either they could actively say, okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going from here to there, this is how crowded my bus or train is. Or when they do a search, a route search, we will provide them with a question: how crowded is this route? Can you please give us the information? And then when they do a route search, we give them the information of how crowded the train or bus is, with where we are mixing real-time information, so the most fresh information just provided by the passengers, and prediction with machine learning. So that's what we see. What you see on the screen, in green, that's where in the route we give for each leg, we tell the people how crowded we think this particular trip is probably going to be, or how actually it's very likely to be, and we give them how many people have recently given information on this particular leg. So this was we did it in a record time. I'd say so. Was a we mobilized a lot of energy and power into this in a very short time. So we got this project out in around a month, a bit more than a month. between the initial ideas and the actual visibility by our users and customers. And it was one of the expectations of our customers. We, in our surveys, 94% of our passengers think that it's useful to get information on how crowded the trains are. We managed to gather quite a large community of contributors, and of course we're working on ways to get more interaction into our app and to have more dialogue with our customers and travelers through our app. And of course we are looking into how to add new data sources to improve the accuracy of the trips. So, for instance, the intervals between trains. So this is where we are. So we got much feedback from a lot of feedback from the press and our customers. We were quite fast to deploy this in France. I think we deployed it earlier than Google, or Google I think had it deployed elsewhere. But it was quite a satisfaction to manage to deploy such a complex product in such a short time, because it's quite complex, because you have to gather the data, store it cleverly, and analyze it with machine learning to get the predictions, and then give it back to our customers, given a very, very high flow of visitors and very tough demands on response time. So we want to give a response in a couple of around 100 milliseconds. So to get all that data, to process and to give it in real time back to our customers is quite a challenge. And we're happy we got to manage this in this very short time, and I think the echo shows that our customers like it and appreciate to have this new feature. Thank you very much. Paolo, back to you. I'm not sure.
I can ask a question as long as Paolo is. Oh no, he's back. Okay, while Paolo is on the way, I can ask Felix a question I have.
Yes, why don't we do that?
We'll play it. I really like the approach of the crowd. I think we don't have.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you. Julian was asking a question, but we can hear you.
Okay, sorry. No, there are some questions from the audience already. One is relevant for both of you, which is how do you define a crowded train? Which is the measurement rules you use to define a crowded train?
Felix, go ahead.
Felix.
I have for us it's very easy. We had worked on it a bit before, so we tested with real customers how their perception of a crowded train would be. So if you maybe I don't know if you have my presentation, I can show you a bit how the scale looks like. Basically, we ask the people, is the train rather empty and you have seats available? There are no seats available, but basically there's nearly no one standing. There's people standing, but there's quite a lot of space between them. There's people standing, but they're quite packed. And the last level is there's millions of people standing. The train is super packed. You can't go in, you can't go out. You have a really hard time. Mm-hmm. Basically, that's our 5 levels. And we tested them with customers so that we we showed that this is like a scale where we get rather good results and rather homogeneous results, but between several customers. If you go here on this slide,
here
you can
we
see
can
on the
see
left.
it. Yes.
On the left, we have the illustrations, and and this is quite intuitive for how.
Can I ask the same
question
question to Julian? How did they use a different technique, of course, to measure the crowdedness? But how do you evaluate the level of occupancy?
We evaluate the level of occupancy similar to Felix's approach. We just have three different categories. We have very full, red, 2, and 1, and it's the total amount of seats, and you calculate how many seats are used or not. And I think everything under 60% is 1, and then it's 2, and then for everything full plus standing, it's like 3. So you should be able to find always a seat if there's 2. You should have a lot of space if there's 1, and if there's 3, it's like really packed and it shouldn't go there.
Okay, I have another question for you, Julian, and then I'll come back to Felix. Have you thought to sell, especially off-peak, 2 seats to 1 passenger to ensure to him that he will be socially distanced from others?
As we have an open system, we cannot sell seats. People can just buy a ticket and board any. People are buying tickets for a connection, for going from one city to the other.
Not for booking, but just for buying. Let's say is not. They will not be allowed to do it.
Yeah, they can just buy a ticket themselves and they just board the trains. We cannot like steer how many seats they use.
Okay.
I think this is an interesting topic for everyone else who can do reservations.
Exactly. And Felix, there is a question about how many contributors do you have on average per day on your system? And how many are regular and how many are occasional?
Okay, I didn't do the conversion. Let's say it varies, but we have around let's roughly in the 20,000 contributions per week. So over 400,000 contributions so far. Sometimes it's 25. Like this is the global range, and it's rather stable over time. So over 400,000 contributions is quite it's big. Gives us quite a lot of data to serve our customers. We made a couple of like quite strong choices. We made the choice to trust our customers. So when even one customer gives an information on like this is how crowded the train is, we will show it to the other passengers because we think it's a valid information. The other thing is we with our machine learning algorithm we can now predict the volume for the most important lines, the most important and crowded lines. Like we have nearly always predictions for how crowded the train will be. Where we have a little bit less information today is, for instance, on the bus network, because basically the bus network is less densely, like there's less passenger density, so probably people don't feel it's so necessary to contribute on crowds or on the crowd.
When the passengers send their indication, there is automatic detection of the line where they're traveling, or they have to indicate the line.
No, this would be my dream, and I know there is technologies to do that, but in that short time frame, with all the GDPR constraints of it was not feasible. So it's the passenger says where he is and what leg he wants to contribute on.
Okay, and Julian, up to you also. Whether you use just use machine learning techniques as well to forecast, not just to provide information about the ongoing situation, but to forecast the forthcoming occupancy levels.
We're doing it different but similar to Felix. We're using our own train staff, which controls the ticket and the train staff, and they always like count the people or like just give an indication of how full the train is. And this data is collected every day since 3 years or 2 years. And this gives us a very, very strong algorithm we can just add with weather and everything else, holidays and everything, to really make a prediction per wagon, not per train. And this is really a helpful information or base we can work with.
Okay.
But also kind of crowdsourcing is just a professional crowdsourcing instead of the public. But we can only do that when we have people in the train. We don't have in all trains. So there, Felix technically would be good. And we're playing around with the automatic detection. So I think if Felix and us would like merge, we would have the perfect solution for that.
Yeah, exactly. We will speak about that also in the next section. So I have a couple of questions left, but the time is running. We will use it for the Q&A session at the end. Thanks, Felix. Thanks, Julian. And now we move to the second part, but you will be back at the end for the Q&A session. I would like to introduce Jan Koller, that will be our third presenter. He's the CEO of Passengera. Is a leading company in providing passenger and connectivity services. Passengera is active with transport operator in such area, including passenger information and infotainment services. I think there is also an introductory poll. So I think Jules is over to you to introduce the polls before Jan starts his presentation.
Thank you, Paolo. So we have the third poll here. Audience can respond to: what communication channels are most effective in reaching passengers? Select or that apply. So it's a multiple choice question. You cannot select as many as you think are most effective. Is it mobile app, website, so the operator's website, chatbot, onboard Wi-Fi, infotainment, passenger information system, or digital media signage? So if you can select your answers, if you can respond in the next 10 seconds or so. We've got about 40 people have responded so far. You can select as many options as you like. What communication channels are most effective in reaching passengers? If I give you maybe 5 more seconds, please select the options. 3, 2, 1. Okay, so if you could close the poll, please. And you can see the result of the poll in the polls closed section. Over to you, Paolo.
Thanks, Jan. You can so you have now the possibility to show to us the solution your company has developed in such an important area of having a more connected and informed passenger journey.
Thank you, Paul. I'm glad for the opportunity to speak here, and I would like to participate to this webinar topic of digital nudge for social distancing by my presentation about not showing only what Passengera is doing, but how digital technologies could help in not only COVID era to keep the social distance and how to get the passengers' confidence in safety. For us at Passengera, as you said, it's a part of the concept that we call connected and informed passenger journey. At the beginning, I just would like to spend a few words about Passengera, what we are doing. We are a global information, entertainment, and connectivity platform specialist. We were established in 2012, having headquarters in Prague, Czech Republic, and offices in Portland, US, and Dubai, UAE. And we have projects already worldwide on 4 continents, serving our customers who are train and bus operators. Initially, we started as a pure software company, but we became the complete solution and services provider together with our cooperation partner Advantech, who is a leading manufacturer in industry computers, not only in the transportation sector. What we believe is that the traveling is still inherent part of our lives. We travel to meet the friends, families, for the business, to explore the new destinations. And what we want is to help get that part of our lives back while respecting the restrictions in the place due to not only COVID and the passengers' security. So our company mission is that we are here to help the transport operators to build the next generation travel experience. And how? That we want to change the traveling experience by providing the most advanced artificial intelligence-driven, personalized business and communication platform between the passengers and the transport operators. In simple, we just want to make the public transport more attractive again. So what is our solution? Just to make it's quite complex and modular platform. What we put together with Advantech is that we provide a modular platform for connectivity and infotainment solutions. For us, the infotainment is not only about entertainment or multimedia content, but because they also provide some strong communication and information channels that could be used to keep passengers informed. And in conjunction with the other technologies like passenger information systems, onboard portals, chatbots, transport operators could create the pure 360-degree passenger care to keep them informed during their entire trip from door to door. This picture shows the modularity of our solutions that we provide together with Advantech. That is modular on hardware and software layer, where we have the rolling stock equipment for the train operators and onboard hardware for bus operators, with a variety of screen devices that could be used as information displays for the passengers. And on top of that, we run our core software platform that is divided in the 4 areas to provide the services for fleet connectivity, passenger information system, infotainment system, or some third-party applications hosted on our platform. And all of that on top is the cloud-based management platform to manage the content, to manage the notifications, the informations, the statistics, and the business analysis. But with all these technologies available, there is still a challenge. There is a challenge how to make the passengers feel safe again in the public transport. Because the keeping social distance is important, but there are other rules to follow. Informations available might be changing in time. So the most important is to keep the passengers informed. And being informed, receiving real-time updates about the changes makes them feel safe and comfortable during the travel in the public transports. This will build the passengers' confidence in the public transport. So how we could do it? Because there are many different information channels that could create the passengers' confusion. What should they watch and when to do not miss the relevant informations for their travel? That's the passenger challenge we are trying to address. Each of you has probably your own experience while traveling with your favorite transport operator. Some of them run mobile apps, but they might be used for only as a connection finder or the ticket purchase. Others keep up to date only their website. Some of them provide the real-time information and updates on the screens of the stations and passenger information systems. And some of you might use third-party travel information services or city public transport information channels, as they already exist in some cities. Or simply, some of you might just use the Google because the Google does know everything, as it looks like. So in many cases, for me as a passenger, it means that I have to watch out the several information sources with the hope that I will get the informations what I need. Sorry, that's one. The reason for that, while the transport operators, the reason for that challenge. The passenger challenge is not that the transport operators don't want to give the passengers the relevant information in the right time and the right channel, but the reason is that there are the different information systems that might be working separately or even isolated, and each of the system has its own data and maybe some own management. They are different age, they have a different communication options, and some of them were not even designed to easily cooperate with the other systems, and to share the relevant information between them in the real time and in the automated way. This is the transport operator challenge we need to address as well. So how to overcome these challenges? How to provide relevant information for the passengers at the right time and on the relevant communication channel? The solution is not the simple technology, but in creating the strategy. The communication strategy with passengers on selected digital touchpoints during each phase of the journey. The digital touchpoints is any point during the passenger journey where operator can digitally communicate or reach the passenger. And in general, we have 3 phases of the passenger journey: pre-travel, while during travel on board, and the post-travel. And there might be the several digital touchpoints in any phases where the passenger is communicating somehow or with the operator. And during that phase, we can use that time to share with him the up-to-date or relevant information during buying tickets, seat reservation, trip planning, reminders for the pre-travel phase, while on board or at the stations through the Wi-Fi, infotainment portals, notifications, or some feedbacks for the post-travel phase. With all those touchpoints, the operators can reach the passengers and share the additional message about security rules, real-time updates, or about some possible promotions to generate some ancillary revenue optionally. So what is the solution? It's something that we call connected and informed passenger journey. It's connected not because the availability of the Wi-Fi on board, but because available informations from the information systems are processed together and provided to the passenger in the right moment on the right communication channel. So the central component is a passenger software platform which processes the input data based on the programmed logic and based on the managed rules, makes the relevant information available on the right communication channels. As a data sources, we consider any system which generates valuable information for the passengers about the transport. It can be automated passenger counting systems, CCTV systems, service status operations, traffic information channels, but also marketing and some general restrictions in place. The communication channel is any technology which can be used to communicate with the passenger during the defined touch points. It could be operator website, mobile app if they run it, Wi-Fi on board on the stations during their login method, passenger information systems, digital media signage on the train stations, infotainment portals on board, but also the chatbot, the really nice and automated technology which can provide the automated customer care and level 1 support. And because of some of these communication channels are used by the passengers or are available only in some phase of the travel, this is the task of the passenger platform to make the right information available on the right channel for the passengers in the right moment. So let's have a look at some examples to see how what are the use cases from the passenger perspective. As examples of what passenger is doing during the phases of this travel and how operators could communicate to them and what other relevant information could be communicated to them, especially about the safety. So let's assume that I'm the passenger now. And because everything starts with the trip planning or the ticket purchase, no matter where, if I'm on the website or in the mobile app, the passenger purchased the ticket. But during the booking phase, the operator could communicate to me the other relevant informations. Like in this example, I can opt in for the chatbot to receive the real-time update about my particular trip during the whole trip, as some airlines are already doing, for example. Or the operator could promote its own mobile app for receiving the instant updates about the real-time information for the trip as well. Or it can be informed directly about the safety rules or promote the additional services. Later on, when I'm on my way to the station, the chatbot or mobile apps can remind me about the departure and the platform details. And it would also promote the fastest and the safest way to the platform in the apps, for example, to avoid the crowded places with many people. And it also could remind me again the safety rules and restrictions, which might be different in the destinations, especially during the international travels. Then I reach the stations or wait for the platform. So I would pass the platform digital media signage screens or the systems reminds me the safety rules for keeping the social distance. And I also have received the notifications on mobile app or on the chatbot that the train is ready for boarding on defined platform, and it advised me about the least occupied coaches. So I will go for those. And the train occupancy information could also be displayed on the platform screens as well. So I entered my preferred coach and I found my seat, so I'm happy, and I can see the information screens and maybe the stickers around me promoting the onboard Wi-Fi to save my data plans, or infotainment portal to receive real-time update for this particular train service, or to access the local content. So I can have a fun, or I can check the status of my follow-up connections for the next changing station to see if it's on time and what is its occupancy as well. Chatbot or mobile app again can remind me about the safety rules in place, to wear the mask, keeping social distance, hygiene rules applied in the train. And on the passenger information system screens, I figured out that the coach's occupancy has changed after onboarding on the last stop. So my coach now looks at the most occupied. So I might decide to change, to move to the other coaches who are less occupied. And as I see from the poll before, many of you would be able to move to the more than 5 coaches as well, which I would do as well. So I finished my trip, and I'm laying on my sofa at home, and I might receive a promotional message from the chatbot or notifications in mobile app from the operator as a gift for my trip for my next journey. Usually this is being used rather in the long distance transport than in the city transports. But unfortunately, I also received a message that during my trip, someone who traveled the same train was tested as positive for COVID-19. So I might be contacted by the authorities to follow the instructions and watch out my health duties. These notifications are possible where the smart quarantine solution is in place, like we have in Czech Republic, or where the transport operators cooperate with the COVID testing authorities. So to conclude, my conclusion is that there is not just one technology to solve the complexity of passenger journey, real-time and contextual information sharing. It's about the centralization and processing information from various sources and creating the digital communication strategy. If I should summarize that in the 3 steps, it's about creating a digital communication strategy, selecting the suitable technologies, the deployment strategy, analysis, and continuous improvement process. Thank you.
Thank you, Jan, for your comprehensive introduction to the different technological approach on all the phases of the passenger journey. And now we move to the last presentation before the Q&A. We have a lot of questions coming, but you are still. We would like to encourage you to put more questions so you can use the Q&A section, as you know. So Mark will be our next speaker, Mark Gisper from Smart Motors. Mark has an extensive technological background in a number of areas, and is quite involved in digitalization and predictive maintenance. So he will share his view on today's topic. But before we have another Paul and Jules, you can introduce it.
Thank you, Paolo. So this is the last poll for us today. What is the biggest barrier to digital transformation for railway operators and maintainers? Is it costs of new technology? Is it lack of digital skills, legacy systems, or is it organizational team culture. So if you can choose one option from these four and vote, please. And so the votes are coming through. If you can select one option, what is the biggest barrier to digital transformation for railway operators and maintainers? We'll give you maybe 10 more seconds to respond. We've got 50 people have responded so far. So if you can make your choice and vote in the next 3 seconds, we'll be closing the vote. In 1 second. So if you can close the poll now, please, and then you can see the result of the poll in the closed section of the poll screen. So we have a bit of a split. I think 30% organizational culture.
It's interesting. There's not a clear dominance of one of the answer here. So Mark, you can comment also on that.
Yeah. Actually, from our perspective, it's always, I mean, it's always the cultural change. But some people may have different thoughts about that. But let's see the presentation and let's have questions and answers after that. Let me start this presentation, which is a kind of storytelling about what happened with this project, because you need to know that this all started before coronavirus and finished 1 month before coronavirus. So the rollout of this project finished in January. Okay, and let's see a little bit how it went. Okay, this is me. We already know me, so I won't take time on this. And something funny that happened when we finished the rollout and the coronavirus struck us, and then we started the confinement, the lockdown here in Spain. I heard in the radio one guy complaining about that. Someone said technology will solve the problems about the coronavirus, and he said yes, but technology always comes after the problem, never when it's needed. It comes way after that. And this is one of example of something that really went the other way around, because luckily we finished this 1 month before the coronavirus. And I remember one person in January that when this appeared in TV news, because it had a lot of people trying to make many it appeared in the social medias and many places. There was one guy that said that this is useless. Whoever will need to know the occupancy of the trains, this is useless. It's nonsense. Someone is spending money because of corruption or something like that. And then coronavirus came in February, and everything looks different. So a little bit of context. We started in 2011 with this thing, and the context is that it started in Barcelona. Barcelona is a 1.5 million city, which moves around 1.2 million passengers per day, which is more or less the same the population of the city, and it's increasing at 20% every 10 years. So by now we expect to be moving. Well, we expect to be moving all the population of Barcelona if we didn't have the coronavirus. Now it's, as you can imagine, it's a little less than that. And the issues that we had in 2011 is that, they didn't have any idea about the customer journey. So they know where the people is getting in, so with the ticketing, but they don't know where the people is going, if they take one direction or another, if they go to another line, they have no idea. And also they wanted to plan change on the operations, okay, to break the carousels, have like a special services, whatever. So why people counting? So first stage to track the fluctuations on the people. So when they change frequencies, what happened when they have special services, when they have stoppages because of breakdowns, or they have some events like a football match or concert or whatever. And also for mitigation of crowds, okay, so having reinforcement with buses or prevent crowding in the station, so from the outside. I said that we started in 2011 because we started as a digitalization company to set up the platform that we call Savannah. It was presented this year, but this is a functionality in the platform. Okay, so actually the functionality about the people counting started in 2017 And then we roll out some different functionalities that you will see on the end to show people about the occupancy of their trains. So what we did is that we made technology research on how to solve the problem to have the counting of the people. And these are from the less complex to the more complex. We started with Wi-Fi tracking and then suspension monitoring. Wi-Fi tracking, we, on the end, we didn't use that because it has around 20% of error. So even if you can solve the randomization, the random mac that the phones do nowadays, since iPhone 5, you have a 20% error here in Spain because there's people that doesn't use Wi-Fi or have 2 cell phones, or people that don't use cell phone or whatever. Okay, and then artificial vision through CCTV, very counting, pressure platform. So at the beginning, just to have data about how many people that were transporting and the fluctuations. What we did is that we implemented. So we were using the data on the MBD bus, which is the TCMS bus on the train, to have the secondary suspension. Okay, so it was so easy as having that transceiver between the TCMS and then a 3G router that is sending the data, and then we made the first analysis on the results, and we had the 4% error. Basically, what we did is that we have a manual counting and the automatic counting through the secondary suspension of the train. And that 4%, it's more related to the people who were there counting, they didn't do it perfectly. Okay, so in some places there was a kind of an error, but 4% it's good enough. And then we scale it. So we install that in 2 trains per line, and then we have the data. Okay, now with that data, as one of our colleagues in the last presentation said, you can extrapolate that. So you can when you have one train running the whole year for the whole time, then you have a lot of data, and we've got algorithms to calculate what the occupancy, the estimation of occupancy. That then the what happened. Everything of this, it's in Savannah, as I said before, and then we make reports for that, and we have all the occupancy, everything. And then what happened? It's that the coronavirus strike, and then this unexpected event that happened made things to change faster than we're supposed to. And the thing that started with 2 trains just to have the information, to make statistics, was very relevant to have all the wagons, all the cars in all the trains in real time. Okay, so the first issue is that we only have 84% of the fleet with TCMS, because the other 16% were really old trains with no TCMS, and only 10% of those had CCTV. So we could use like the next stage of complexity on counting people that was using the CCTV that was already in the train, and 6% of it didn't have even CCTV. So that 16% made the project a little bit hard to manage, because if you want to encourage people to take trains again, we need to serve them all the data. You imagine that you are in a platform and you see that the next train, you have information about the occupancy in the next train. You think like, well, it's kind of suspicious, So we have to fix that. And to fix that, what we did on the first term, it's just to use the CCTV. Okay, so with the CCTV, as someone said in the public chat, can be used to count people in real time, and we have applied plus minus 2 people error, which is it's quite good even for in these very crowded places in a small place. Obviously, this image is before the coronavirus, so we started doing these projects before the coronavirus. That's the reason why they're not using masks. Okay, don't be afraid. As someone in the chat said, we also are doing this in the platform nowadays. But what happened is that for that 6%, and not only the 6% that we have in TNB, but also in different operators that we are working with, there are really a lot of trains that doesn't have CCTV, or the CCTV that they have, it's quite terrible. So it's just noise. You cannot do anything with that. So we did this retrofitting on the trains, which is this small device. Actually, it's a small camera that counts people directly. Okay, this is kind of a big innovation that we did in a short term, because we did it in 2 months. Okay, so in 2 months we had the device developed, certified for the train, and installed in the train. Okay, so this is quite easy to install. This installation was done within 2 hours for a whole train, which is it's a record speed. And on the end, this is the result that we got. Okay, so we are using the platform screens that the operator has, or in this case, we did the whole thing. So we developed the screens, certified the screens, and made the interface that shows how many people there is per car. There's a scale of 5, 5 symbols about how many people there is. So of the 100% is 5, and then it's 20% per every person that you see in the car. Okay, and now we also put messages about put your masks on, clean your hands, whatever, and also when is the next train expected to come, etc. Also information about if I'm in a wheelchair, when am I supposed to be. At the beginning, this was planned to be for to ensure that the traffic within the train and the platform was, and the load of the train was as fast as possible. And in TMB, the example, the people trains to be to keep on the edges of the train, because are where the entrance are. So because of the coronavirus, now we have a functionality that will encourage people to take the train again and see if it's crowded or not. Another example about a thing that we did before the coronavirus, and now it's really useful, it's the APP that we call Daedalus. It was meant to be like a guide within the train. So if you need to get out of the train, you can scan the QR code and we'll show you how to move around the station. If I want to go to this place and I say take this exit or that exit, elevator, etc. But now it can be used also to see the real-time occupancy on the train. And this is the example of the Daedalus with integration with the bus, other systems, the other operators, and the whole net. Well, to conclude, as we always say, just don't choose the best technology, choose the best strategy, and solve real short-term problems, and then scale. So start easy and start fast, and then scale it and make it more complex. And the last, but the most important, don't make the project out from it. Okay, digitalization, it's a day-by-day doing on solving problems through with the data at the core. So thank you very much. Pretty much, I think I'm done, and let's go for the Q&A. Thank you, Paolo.
Thank you, Mark. It was perfectly on time. So we have plenty of time now for our Q&A session. As you know, again, you can either put a question on the Q&A section, and we will try to answer as much as possible of them, also asking to more than one speaker to intervene about that, or you can raise your hand and then you can present yourself and put your question in person. So while we wait, I don't know whether there is I think there is no one yet having raised his hand, at least from my what I see, but we have many questions from the Q&A session, so I start from them. I have a couple of let's say specific questions for our speakers of the first part that can be also raised or expand the discussion with the other. One for SBB, Julian, the pricing of the lower occupancy train. There was a question about how much this was different from your tariff policy before the COVID. So probably how much was this huge discount now compared to off-peak train prices before the COVID?
I think the tool is not different at all. I think we're using it much more aggressive now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So lower prices or more trains involved, or?
No, to change the trains and to change running trains is such a...
No, I mean more trains with such pricing policy.
Yeah. I mean, depending on, we're using it more strategically now. Before we really try to highlight some trains. Now the focus lies much more on Corona and COVID and empty trains and strategic on there. So the money we can spend on selling cheaper tickets is spent on focusing on this topic.
Okay, and Felix, another question for you there, or more a comment that someone is saying that it's not that easy to find this information about crowding on your app. And this brings me to a general question to all speakers, that not only information availability is relevant, but also how you make the customer, let's say, aware of it. Because I think a lot of operators have done something in this period, but especially if this information is not shared at the platform, but just on the apps, it's not always that easy to find it.
The first thing is we integrated for now only in the route planning, because that's the place where we knew that everyone would see it necessarily, and it would necessarily be relevant information to that person doing his route. We are looking at how we could make information available differently on, but we didn't find yet. Like we did some trials with some public platforms where we gave information on predictive information on crowdedness, like a little bit like the slides Julian showed, where we say, okay, these are the peak times to be avoided, and we tried also to give information on the stations to be avoided at peak times. But for now, we didn't find a really convincing method of sharing that information. So for now, we just give it in the route planning, because that's where we know it's where we found a convincing UX for sharing the information.
Julian?
Yes, if the topic is digital nudges, I think the technological solution is one thing. I think the other thing is really getting the right moment to place the right nudge. And I think this is a huge challenge. I think none of us really addressed it a lot. Or at least I did in my presentation not. We're spending a lot of time with our UX specialists to find out where should the information be, how should it look like. Just if the button is black or yellow or red makes just a tremendous difference. And we can have the perfect data set, we can have the perfect AI algorithm, the perfect technology. It doesn't help if the nudge is not placed at the right moment, if just the user's caught off guard, he's not caring, he doesn't find information. So I think this is a huge challenge that we managed to really have a customer-centric development. It's this buzzword, but I think in the essence it is this, and in nudges it's even more this. And I think we try to work as close with the UX specialists as we can, and I would like to give this everyone an advice. Combine your technique with the UX as early as you can. It will save you so much hassles and will make your amazing technique more valuable.
Yeah, maybe it's worth to ask also to Mark and Jan their views about that, how to properly embed this information in the customer experience.
Yeah, I have to fully agree with Julian what he said, because even if you can have the perfect technology, and it's the challenge is that how to make this information available on the right place and the right time. And our experience with providing this data is that we don't work with projection of the crowded places in the trains or in the platforms. We work with real-time data. So from the crowding in the trains, we got usually information from automated passenger counting systems like Marco was talking about. And that usually depends how fast we get this data available in our platform, and then we deliver it quite fast to the dedicated communication channel.
Mark?
Yeah, from our point of view, that's a quite interesting topic, because there was when we started this, the question came up on where do we put the screens, okay? And finally they said we want to have these screens because here in the platform, because we want people to spread around, more efficiently in the platform. That was before coronavirus. In the case that we are on now, that's the reason why we added that functionality in Daedalus and having it in the the APP, because they were, they saw that you need to have that information outside of the infrastructure and have it available whenever they want, whenever they want to see it. And so we had to publish that in the intranet. We had to publish that in the webpage of TMB and different places, because
because the concept of nudging is not just to make it available, but to flow it to the passenger, even if they are not searching for it. No.
Yeah. So on the end, what we're doing now is to use those screens outside of the stations.
Okay, thank you. So we have another question concerning how to apply this kind of technology you have presented. So more than one question concern or would like to highlight the relevance of not just focusing on trains and vehicles, but also on platform and stations. You both Mark and Jan have touched a bit of it, but maybe you can expand also how much this is feasible in an open system, because metro with entrance, you can always limit the access, counting the passenger entering and exiting from the station, and fix a maximum capacity. In an open system, let's say managing this is you cannot impose, let's say you can measure using CCTV. I think Mark and Jan mentioned it. Any further contribution on that?
If may I start mine? From our experience, we don't have the projects where the customer yet is not somehow counting the crowdness on the platforms and on the stations yet. I saw it in the chat that there was one comment saying that the CCTV systems could be used for passenger counting as well. This is correct, for sure. And we have this experience from the different projects, but they are using these counting methods in the trains as well, not in the the platforms.
Absolutely.
And I think the reason for that is because the CCTV systems deployed on the platforms and stations are quite old and obsolete. So there is no applied technology which allow us to do even that estimated calculations or apply any AI or machine learning techniques to do some calculations. That's my contribution, Mark.
Yeah, our experience is that we cannot only use this into the trains or the platforms, but also this technology, it's used in some events like demonstrations, like football matches, like concerts. But obviously, the cameras should be in good conditions and with a good view. So the old cameras usually doesn't work. So we're talking about digital cameras, and but that's not really expensive. I mean, we're talking about maybe 50 euros per camera, which can be used nowadays because
there is a specific question from the audience saying CCTV count but not locate. But I'm not sure I fully understand, because you know the location of the CCTV. So normally you can predefine the area which is monitored.
Yeah, exactly. That's well done. We predefine the area what we want to monitor. Imagine you are in a bus. Okay, so you're counting people that it's in a bus. If you don't put the area, you locate that area, you could be counting people outside of that area.
Yeah. Julian.
I think the challenge here is if we focus on the question of digital nudges, it's fairly easy to discuss about the technique and apply the technique, but the question is, what are we doing with it then? I mean, I now film the people, I know how crowded it is, but in the end of the day, I have to somehow transfer this information to the people and make them active or change their habits. So I think it for us, also for me, it's really easy to often start a discussion from the technological point of view, but actually we should turn around and ask ourselves, what do we want? And then look for the technology. Or what do we want with the technology? What do we want to achieve?
May I challenge this a bit? Because of course you're right, but if you give the information about train occupancy and people fix that they can safely travel on a given moment of the day based on the information you provide, and then they arrive at the station and the station is crowded, regardless of the train is not, they can think your nudging is not complete or not correct, you know. So that the idea to cover all the journey from that point of view will also improve the nudging you will give on the train side.
Definitely. The question of what do you want to achieve, if you just want to inform the passengers about the current situation of the station, I'm not sure if cameras are the best solution given all the data security problems. I mean, it's like, what do we really want? And then like ask for the technique or the technology we would like to use. But sure, I think the cameras are having a huge potential, but I'm sometimes missing first the question, what do we want to achieve?
Felix, any view on that from a metro operator in a big city?
We are also thinking about how to give information on the crowdedness of our stations to the people, but we're not totally there yet. But let's say at least in our network, there's still quite a correlation. Like if our metros are empty, chances are the stations won't be too crowded, and vice versa. If we have packed trains, we have packed stations. That's so. Let's say but we are working on it, and we are not using cameras. We're using, because of a lot of the data privacy issues, we prefer to use the count. We have a closed system. We have we can use counting, and then adjust it with the rest of the information available we have. But for now, we're not there yet, and we thought the most valuable information there, where you really don't want to be in a crowded situation, is in the train, because that's where you stay the longest, at least in a metro system.
And there is another specific question for you. Do you provide any reward to the people that give the information to you? There is any gamification
yes, we there again, we're working on it, but the gamification increases the complexity level of the thing, because then you have personal information, so you have GDPR, you have to store the information very neatly, so it increases the complexity a bit. So we're working on it, but for now it's absolutely free. Like, people do it because they think it's good for the community.
Okay, thank you. I move to another topic. If there is let's say no further comment on it, we are still looking for other questions from the audience, but we have a few that need to be answered. One, I think, is mainly to SBB RATP. What communication strategy or channels are you using for the passenger and commuters who are visually handicapped? So how to provide information also to those categories? Felix.
We have a whole team that's specialized in that. So like, I'm not like the best expert on it, but what I know is that our app and website are designed for being accessible. So visually handicapped people can, like, you press the items and the descriptions read aloud.
Julian?
Same for Felix, but however, we noticed that if you're visually impaired and you use our normal app, it's so full of information, it's difficult to steer through. So we tried to use the beacons we have in the train to develop right now it's a proof of concept, an app we called SMB Inclusive, where you can, like, you're in the train, and then this app tells you which train you are and which carriage you are, where the train goes to, where it stops, that it stops soon. So through the beacon, the app knows where it is, and then this information just shares to the person. And we think that this is already the most needed information, especially people who are visually impaired are in need of, because we can look just if it's the right train or not. It comes for the platform. Are you on this platform? The train with the right beacon is close to you. It's this train. Please use it. And this is very nice. And it seems to work very well.
Any view from Marco? Yeah.
Just like as a compliment to in the redesign of our app, we ran tests with companies that had specialized in testing them for visually impaired people. So to make sure the thing would be usable from like the product would be usable by people with any type of visual impairment.
Mark, have you experienced this in Barcelona for your case?
Well, I'm not the person for this topic.
Okay. I will then move to a more general point that was raised after one of our polls. The question is to you, Mark, but I think everybody's concerned. The question is, why do you think cultural challenge is the biggest barrier? Don't you think that COVID has changed a bit the mind of the person, even the one involved in that? And in case you remain on your position, let's say, what we can do to further promote this cultural challenge? I think is a question for you, but everybody is also entitled to answer to this.
Yeah, from our perspective as a digitalization company specialized on this, I say that because it's what we found that it's the most, and I'm pretty sure, and we already seen that the coronavirus and all the circumstances that surround it will help to do that transformation through for the mindset, for the cultural change to digitalization. The thing is that digitalization it's not only to have data and show that data. That's digitization. So digitalization actually it's how you change processes, improve them, or create new processes in order to create value, and to change the processes and create things. It takes a lot of courage and cultural change. For instance, we just started this year with one of our biggest customers, the CDM strategy, condition-based maintenance strategy, which is like the top of the pyramid in digitalization and maintenance. And when after 2 years working on that, when we finished, one of the people that was directly in the development from the operator point of view, he was afraid of starting that. Say, can we wait a little bit more to switch to the CDM? And that's just because to change that mindset, it's really, really, really hard, because whenever you need to digitalize something, obviously you need to change the process and the way they work, and people just don't usually like to change the way they are doing things and rely on data that it's gathered from another part and that stuff. So basically it's that it's from our point of view and the experience that we have in from the last 15 years working on this.
Ian, any view on that?
Yeah, as we talk about digitalization in this part of the transportation we are talking about, I have to agree that we face this challenge quite a bit as well, because if I recall my picture showing our concept about processing the data from different data sources from the different systems like passenger information systems, passenger counting, and some others. Some of them are quite long, so they don't use the modern digital interfaces. So it's very difficult to get data from there. And sometimes this is the main barrier to rolling out the project or to get the data, and the customer is waiting for refreshing the rolling stock. If I'm talking about the onboard infrastructure.
Felix and Julian, I have a slightly different question for you on the same topic. Since you are both involved in quite involved in digitalization in your companies, there are let's say historically established transport operators. So have you seen your role expanding, having more requests from colleagues, more visibility for your project after the COVID because of the relevance of digitalization to manage the situation? Or business as usual, maybe your companies are really oriented to that? What is the situation?
Maybe, yeah. So I don't know.
Go on.
for me, I'd say we had already quite a strong focus on digitalization before. What the COVID allowed was like a general rise in the competency in the digital competency of the whole company, because when you have to work 100% digital for 2 months, it helps. But I'd say for in our case, we already had like a very strong support before, and I don't see like a major need. Like there's no particular need for more support, at least from what I've seen. Like there's a lot. We have there's a lot to be done, but there's a lot of willingness to get it done.
Okay, Julian.
From my point, I can totally add on Felix. I think COVID changed the way of what we digitalize. I think it gave us a shift. I think digitalization is already quite a buzzword and everyone knows about it, and we're really doing it since 10 years or so. But COVID gives it a strong shift in what we're doing. I mean, we're losing heavily money right now. Like every transport operator is still suffering from the lockdown we had. So we're shifting our resources. And I think this is good because we started to digitalize everything. Now we're focusing on the things which are really bringing value. So it can be seen as something positive too. However, what I notice, or what's the biggest challenge, is the willingness to digitalize is there, the awareness that the topic is important is there, the awareness that we have to think different is there, but let's use the word, the digital literacy is not there. I think many managers, many people working the product, they're not digital literate yet. They don't know how to work with data. I think working with data, harvesting data needs some other way of how the company works, or how you understand what questions you ask. And I noticed that we're still having big challenges there. And I think companies like the 2 here are present can help us in teaching these things, because they're younger and they grew up with a different mindset. I think this is a very valuable industry work, that we're bringing the legacy and the knowledge, and the new companies are bringing a different mindset, inspiring us. So also this kind of webinar is very interesting to have two different thoughts.
Yes, and a question for I hear from the beginning is not coming from the audience, but maybe it's relevant. You and they combine it with a question coming from the audience. So of course you provide. We have seen several solutions to inform the passenger about the likely occupancy level, and trying to nudge him to use less crowded trains, so less off-peak hours trains and things like that. But not always this is possible. You mentioned, I think, Julian, in one of your slides. So sometimes you have to provide an alternative. An alternative can be another means of transport, so shared solution, for instance. And I would like to understand whether this can be expanded, and if you think you will expand it in the future, trying to combine more rail services with other mobility provider services. And the second question is coming from the audience: do you use this information to replan your service, even if not tomorrow, but then let's say the next timetable or the next months? Are you considering? We know that the rail-based system are more rigid than the buses, but are you using this information to review your service plan?
Now we're really tackling the big visions of the new way of how mobility works. I think I can answer both with yes, but not yet. First question about the stronger connection between shared solutions, or your own bike with a PT system, or your own car with a PT system. Definitely. SP would like to first strengthen your own car and park and ride solutions with the trains, and also car sharing system. For example, in Switzerland, when you go to the mountains, it's much more convenient to just drive with the train into the beginning of the mountain and take a car sharing system to your small village up there, or your small hut. I think we really would like to invest into this, and we're doing it. And secondly, it will change how we do our timetables, definitely. But I think it's too early for this. I think the market is still evolving, and we really don't know where it goes to. For myself, there is a big question which I provocatively would put in the room. When we talk about public transport, we're always talking about bus, trams, trains. Well, why is a bike sharing system not always public transport? I mean, we see more and more cities financing this. Why are some kind of e-scooters not also public transport, or some car sharing systems? I mean, we have to rethink how mobility works anyways, because for environmental reasons, and etc., etc. So it will be a very exciting time of what we understand of public transport and how we combine it then. And to quick drive into the timetable solution, yes, definitely. I think this would be the big wish, the data-driven with the analytics of where the people are traveling, where they would like to have hubs, that we then adjust our timetable. But we're still a legacy company. Timetables adjustment takes years, and to build new stations and to build the infrastructure takes years. So yes, but please give us time. Or the companies which are present here, the two young ones, they will pressure us to do it. So we will see.
Felix.
So on the new mobility part, we unfortunately had kind of a dry run, a test run before. So we had a major strike in December and January. So where we already provided like whatever we could to our customers to help them go around the cities with like nearly all metro lines and suburban lines closed during the day, off-peak hour. So we already are kind of used to that. And the other part is that our app already shows alternative mobility options like shared bikes or even or car sharing, or like any or other options like private, I would say, cars with drivers. So that's one part of the answer. The other part of the answer is that the link with crowdedness is, in our case, is that is not obvious, because when the trains are crowded, it's usually during peak hour, and it's not one of our suburban trains on line A takes 2,000 passengers, and we have one train every 90 seconds. So it's not a couple of shared bikes in the city that will replace mass transit. And I think we have I have a quite convinced audience in front of me, and so that goes also with the last question. Most of our infrastructure is already at the limit. So we're not like we're not putting in less trains than we could on peak hours when we know the trains are crowded. So maybe we'll use it to adjust it marginally. Maybe on the bus network, it's going to be an option. But the other thing is we already have that. Like, we have a lot of other systems to measure and to influence the mobility offer. And by the way, the mobility offer is, of course, is mainly determined by the region. Like we advise with the transport operator, but in Paris, it's the Paris region who decides it, and we're there to advise, of course.
Mark and Ian, have you got from client requests to not just to provide information, but to flow this data on train or service planning system, let's say, or to make this information available to verify the quality of the service planning?
If may I start with the comment? Yes, we are using all the data as we have for business intelligence and analysis, because this is where we, as well, the operators, see the biggest value of cross-connecting the systems and understanding and comparing the data from one to another one, and also the history data. So we at Passengera, we are the platform provider. So we give them the data in the format they want, and we help them to do the analysis on top. But what they do with them, we leave it up to them. So we just interpret.
That's very clear. Mark?
Yeah, actually the first objective of the functionality of our platform was to provide them that information in order that they could analyze these fluctuations on the operation, how they could change or replan the operation on the future, and as I said, to break the circle lines or have special special services and whatever. Because of coronavirus, the objective changed, but the main objective was this one at the beginning. So we are sharing everything on their data lake so that they perform their own analysis, regardless the ones that we are providing already to them.
Thank you. So I move now to a couple of questions that relates more on the, let's say, we have not touched too much about why we are doing that now, but the COVID infection, of course, is the main constraint we are facing. So there was a question a few minutes ago about whether what you are doing in that area is related to any tracking and tracing program. So where you can use information on train presence, even if it's not booking, but if you have, I would say, checked-in passenger, using this information to track possible infection. And on the other side of the same topic, one of the people of the audience is asking whether there is any privacy issue to be addressed in managing this information and how you addressed it. So I start again from our operators and then gather the views of the solution providers. Felix? Oh, Julia first this time. Difficult question.
The first part, I mean, we don't have any check-in or anything close to there, so we rely entirely on the people using the official Stop COVID app. I mean, it's, I don't know. I don't think I've not spoken to anybody who had the idea of where we're like of everyone registering or like maybe it's like I don't see it feasible like that every one of the 12 billion trips registers and anywhere to check it, and like that's, I don't see this being reasonably feasible. The other part is on the crowdedness. Well, as I said before, we gather totally anonymous data, so we have absolutely no privacy issue on that one.
Okay, Julian?
As I'm aware of, but it's just me, on our company is big, nothing, we leave everything to the official government, as for Felix and RATP. Gathering occupancy data, everything is perfectly anonymized, as it's collected by the just by light barriers and or by the staff in the train, just counting. However, we are exploring the ways of tracking people 24 hours, or no, letting people track or giving us their data and thus analyze how they travel. So we can also say like, oh, you have been on this train, analyzing their mobility behavior. But this is more an exploration field of us to trying to find out what are the cases for the customers there. What benefit can we give there? Because only if we can give them benefit, they're willing to give us the data. So we're more right now on the side of what can we do with this data.
They have to provide a consensus based on some possible advantage or reward.
Yeah. We didn't think so much of what we can do with it beside for customers.
Yeah.
Because we have to solve this.
But there is this idea that it was also pre-COVID to move towards a fully, let's say, account-based mobility, where we are not anymore part of flows, but we are individual travelers that are managed as individuals by transport operator and not by streams of people. So I think is probably the market is more ready than the operators are in that respect. I don't think they are. Well, it depends country to country, but
yeah. I mean, one thing we have, for example, is our automatic check-in and check-out ticketing system. So people can just check in and then they just travel over the day, and the app records where they travel by tracking. And then at the end of the day, they get the bill of their mobility. So never bought a ticket, they just
exactly
an individual ticket. And this is already running in our main app, and a lot of people are using it. I think 400,000 people are using it. So this is something which works quite well. Maybe this is also social distancing, as you don't have to buy and show a ticket.
Exactly.
But so these automatic ticketing solutions are a huge value for people and are very widely used and are a way to get the consensus that they share data with us.
Mark? Mark or Ian, any view about how to, let's say, merge individual information such as the one on ticketing with the system you presented to monitor the occupancy level on the system?
Yeah, I want to agree with you, Paolo, about the approach about the tracking the passengers as individuals, not the flow, because this is what we are doing. But of course, it's all anonymized because we have to keep our compliance with GDPR and other regulations in the world. But even if those data are anonymized, we can track the particular persona and store the data about it, and they are very valuable for the transport operators later on because this creates the context. And your initial questions about it was from the Q&A probably, how is the legal issue while working with, let's say, using this technology for tracking the infected people as well. I use it on one of my slides as an example that what it could happen when I finish my trip and it was somehow later on get known that I might travel with someone who was infected. Actually, at this stage, we don't have a real example of that because it's in the conceptual idea stage. We are discussing with one of our customers, but now the status is that they are trying to clear up the legal issues, exactly as it was in one of the questions. It's not easy, and it is very sensitive information about every person if he is infected or not.
Yeah, I think I've seen in China they have fully embedded the checking system, when the people are entering a bus or a metro with the tracking and tracing system, but of course it's a completely different legal framework there, and they are allowed to do it, let's say.
Yeah.
So we are approaching the end. Before my closing remark, I would like to ask to each one of the speakers if they have a final remark or final point, or any point was not discussed in our roundtable so far. So I start from the last one. Mark, do you have any closing remark?
Not really. Just wanted to, about the last topic, say that yes, it's achievable, but legally it's not possible, at least here in here in Europe. We've been asked to do that in some other operators with another legal frame, but not only for coronavirus, but also for criminals. But we don't want to, as we say here, we don't want to get into that garden.
Ian?
I don't have nothing more to add. I just would like to thank you for all the presenters for the nice and complementary information sharing from your markets. And I'm glad to hear that somehow the technology that we and Smart Motors presented and Julian and Felix as operators are somehow getting to cross soon. So it's not like the technology is somewhere else and the way of the operators are going is completely different. So that's my takeaway.
Thank you, Ian. Felix?
For once, I go first.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone. I think I would like to highlight two things. One is, I think this way of discussing as operators, traditional operators, and rather young suppliers, is very important. This open innovation, I would like to motivate everyone to really get into discussion. I think we can only handle this new way of mobility if we stick together, the suppliers and us, old operators. And second, a warning for everyone. I see this all the time. I already noticed it a bit in our discussions now. Don't put technology first, put people first. I think really is the use case, and then we put an amazing technology around it. I think we're all doing it, but sometimes it's so much easier to talk about the technology. Maybe also because it's fascinating. Yes, thank you.
Thanks a lot, Julian. Felix?
I can only subscribe to what Julian just said, for especially the last remark, which I totally agree with, and of course I would like to thank you all for organizing this presentation.
Thank you, Felix. So I move now to my closing remark before letting Jules introduce the next webinar. So thank you, everybody, for very interesting presentation and contribution and active participation also in the Q&A session. I think we explored the topic quite extensively on both technical and operational, but also more on the customer side, let's say. And I would like to confirm what Julian was saying. We should not focus too much on technology. I voluntarily, skipped some of the technology question, whether CCTV is better or thermal plotting or waving of passenger over the trains. There are a number of technology that can provide this information. I think our speaker introduced some of them. Even not technology, but just simple indication from passenger, as RATP was doing. But the key element here for the success of digital nudging is to influence the behavior. So it's not just to provide an additional information, which is good, of course. It's important for passenger, but we have to think that many of them will probably notice too late, or we have no alternative. So we have to think in a broader sense. We have to consider the alternative solution when possible. Some example were presented. We have suggest other period of the day to travel, especially for the trips related for not related to working or educational reasons. We have probably to use this information also to flow to authorities, pushing for different organization of the cities, different modulation of timing of the activities in order to spread out the traffic all along the day and avoid this peak hour. There are still a key, let's say, a key element and not a good element of the functioning of the transport system. We also try to understand how to combine this digital nudging with other measures. The speaker were highlighting a combination with the tariff, with possible gamification, rewards. So to combine, to use this as a tool, not a magic wand, in order to help the passenger first to come back using transport system, because there is a lot of work to be done in the direction. In most cities, we still do not have reached the pre-COVID traffic, even when the health emergency situation is under control. And secondly, to help them to travel safely. And at the end of the day, to have an heritage, a legacy that will last after the COVID, because no one likes travel like sardines, squeezed on a train, even where there is no virus around. So everything we are doing in that direction would be, in my opinion, beneficial also after COVID for a more, let's say, for an improved customer experience for everybody using the public transport. So that's all from my side. I hope the audience have enjoyed the discussion, and Jules, is up to you now to present the next webinar.
Thank you very much, Paolo, and thank you to all of the speakers, Julian Reininger, Felix von Heckmann, Jan Kohler, Marc Gispert, and of course Paolo Guglielminetti. I've been practicing your name, Paolo. I did it right. Yes, thank you for the wonderful debate. I think we had a lot of questions from the audience that kind of reflects the interest from the public and from the industry. We had a lot of operators and authorities, as well as industry colleagues joining this debate from the audience part. And I think there's a lot of interest, and it's good to get some insight from operators, larger established operators, and also innovative solution providers. And I think, Paolo, you handled all the difficult questions well, and all the speakers, responded well to the some challenging, grilling questions from the audience. So thank you to everyone. Thank you to the audience for joining this session. Just very quickly, so the next session will be in November, the 20th of November, the third session on managing passenger flow in stations post-lockdown. Next time we'll be looking at a little bit more macro picture from the station owner's point of view, how to manage the passenger flow. So once again, we have SBB And in addition to them, we have Keolis speaking, and Viovo, the passenger flow specialist, will be speaking, moderated by UIC's Christian Chavanel. So do register. The registration is now open on our website, and in the chat screen you will see the link to that. After that, this is actually happening before this webinar. Later this month, we will have a session on optimizing rail resource management during uncertain times. So this will be, we have 2 speakers confirmed, where we have 1 or 2 more speakers about to be confirmed as well. It will be, we'll have Chief Administrative Officer from New Jersey Transit, as well as the Enterprise Resource Planning Specialist Goal Systems. So do register for that session as well. This is also available to register. And just very quickly, also to provide an information on the annual event, which is scheduled for February next year. So this was supposed to happen in Berlin in February. We ran for the last couple of weeks. We ran a sponsor survey, and we had overwhelming support for making this a digital event. So we are announcing here that it will be an online edition. The theme will be reimagining rail innovation to get society back on sustainable track. So we'll be covering innovation, recovery from COVID, and sustainability. So these will be 3 key topics to be covered in February. And we will, if you're interested, do get in touch with us. And this will be a 4-day event, 23rd to 26th of February, taking place online. So thank you very much, everyone, for taking part in this session, and I look forward to seeing you all at the next session in 2 weeks' time. So thank you very much for joining, and goodbye.